I hate sport. You heard me right, I just hate sport. So it's a paradox that I'm standing here today, because this could be me. I'm standing here trying to convince you that you need to exercise. I've devoted my own research to understanding why exercise is so important for us. And I know that I'm talking like a missionary, an exercise missionary. But although I hate sport, the fact is that I'm convinced by data. I'm convinced by the science. It appears that if you exercise, your lifespan will be 5 years longer, and you will have 10 more years without disease than those who have a lazy lifestyle. Exercise protects against more than 35 different disorders and diseases. Exercise protects against type 2 diabetes, elevated blood pressure, cancer, heart disease, just to mention a few. And there's even evidence that if you exercise, it can be used as a medicine for the treatment of chronic diseases. You may think, as I do, that you are not the sporty type, or you may think that you do not have time for exercise. But the fact is that those who think they do not have time for exercise will sooner or later have to find time for illness. Today, more people than ever are very fit. And at the same time, more people than ever are very unfit. And millions of people are going to die prematurely because they do not exercise. Most people know that it's important to exercise. They think they have to exercise to fight obesity, but that's totally wrong. Being obese may not necessarily be a problem, but being unfit is a problem. Let me tell you a story about two brothers. The two brothers, Peter and Mark, both have a high body mass index, a high BMI, but they differ markedly with regard to their fitness level. Peter has always been very active. He ran a half marathon with a body weight of 140 kilo. And he is an elite soccer player, or he was an elite soccer player when he was young. That's at least what he tells his 3 small sons. I must admit it was to my surprise that all tests were normal. No sign of diabetes, normal blood cholesterol, everything was normal. Mark, on the other hand, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and elevated blood pressure. Mark loves his car, but he would never take his own car to the airport because the distance from the parking lot to the check-in is much too far to walk. Mark has a lazy lifestyle. So the story about Peter and Mark tells us that exercise has an independent role. And this story is backed up by studies on thousands of people telling us that no matter what your body weight is, it is important to exercise. Not in order to lose weight, but in order to stay healthy. The science can even tell us that it's better to be fit and fat than lean and lazy. Look at those figures that come up here now and tell me which body shape you prefer. Would you prefer to be the lean type? Or would you prefer to be the pear form with fat on your hips and your buttocks? Or would you prefer the apple form with abdominal fat? Or do you just prefer to be fat? Okay, the truth is that although fashion dictates a very lean body, listen, having fat on your hips and your buttocks offers protection against heart disease. In contrast, having abdominal fat, the apple form, increases your risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia. And the worst condition is to have abdominal fat without any of the good fats on your hips. So abdominal fat, that is fat around the inner organs. This fat becomes inflamed and causes dementia, cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. The big question is, how do we avoid the abdominal fat? Let me tell you another story. Very few people ask me, Bente, how much exercise is too much? They ask, how little can I get away with? So we conducted this experiment. We asked young, healthy males who were very active, or normally active. They took 10,000 steps per day. We asked them to decline their daily stepping to 1,500 steps per day for 2 weeks. They had to go to school or to work, but they should take the car, take the elevator, have someone to bring the coffee. You know the type. Just being lazy. So during these 2 weeks, their fitness level decreased. Another thing happened, and this is a secret. They also lost body weight, more than 1 kilo. Please don't tell this to anyone. In fact, what happened was that they lost muscle mass. When we gave them a high-fat meal and took blood tests, their blood plasma became milky because their fat-burning capacity markedly decreased. They also developed insulin resistance. That means that they came closer to developing a type 2 diabetes. And when we did a scanning, we saw that they had a significant increased amount of abdominal fat around the inner organs. And all this happened just in 2 weeks. One thing more happened. So 2 of the test persons were my own sons. That's something I have to do when I cannot get permission from the ethical committee. Oh, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. So, that's not right. Oh, don't tell it to anyone. Okay. But I realized that they became very irritated, depressed, and annoyed. So we decided to repeat the experiment, and now we did some neuropsychological tests. And we were able to confirm that just 2 weeks of inactivity had a significant effect on concentration and focus. So all this happened just in 2 weeks. Imagine that you're sick. Imagine that you have an infection or undergo surgery. Imagine that you have to go to bed for 3 weeks. A study showed that 3 weeks of bed rest has a more profound effect on physical work capacity than 30 years of aging. Did you get that? If you go to bed for 3 weeks, you become 30 years older. And that's not the worst. The shocking fact is that it takes 10 times as long to regain fitness as it takes to lose it by being lazy. But what if you hate sport? What can you do for yourself? If you're pregnant, you can just walk. It's good for your baby. It's good for you. If we just do 30 minutes of brisk walking every day, our risk of diabetes, cancer, dementia, heart disease decreases by 30%. If we do 60 minutes of exercise, the risk decreases by half. And if we even a couple of times have our heart rate up, the benefit is even greater. It's also good for our mental health. Exercise is a weapon against depression, tiredness, stress, and even sexual dysfunction. So there are all good reasons to start moving. Although I hate sport, and I really hate sport, I could maybe ask myself, could I skip the elevator? If you just skip the elevator for 12 weeks, it has an effect on your body weight, your waist, and your blood pressure. Maybe I could exchange some of my meetings from normal meetings where I just sit down and do them like walk and talk meetings. Do I need a car? Do I need 2 cars? Is 1 car enough, or could I even take my bicycle? Could I walk down and buy fresh bread every day take my bicycle to the market and buy fresh vegetables, or at least park my car further away from the supermarket? Could I exercise in front of the TV? The Danes watch television in average 4 hours per day. 4 hours. Could I just exchange 1 hour with a brisk walk? There is a lot I can do. There's a lot we can do individually, but we also have to face the fact that the environment affects our physical activity level. When we ask people why they cycle to work, only less than 20% say it's because of the exercise. Most of them say it's because it's convenient, it's easy, and it's fast. So we do not move because we are told to. We move to get forward. We move when the context compels us to do that. There's a lot I can do, but I need help. We need to build a society that supports physical activity. If I'm not afraid that my kid will be hit by a car, I will allow her to take her cycle to school. When I go into a public building, the stairs should be visible, not the elevator. We walk more when we live near parks and green spaces, and especially if the parks are illuminated when it is dark. So this is a message. Just as politicians always should consider gender and ethnic issues, they should also consider health aspects, including how infrastructure and architecture influence the physical activity of a population. There's a lot I can do by myself, at work, at home, in my leisure time, but I need help. We need to develop moving cities. We need to start a movement for moving. Will you help me in doing that? Will you stand up and walk and start a movement for moving? Thank you.